Well wishes. I'm Dr. Dana E. Crawford, the director of the Trauma-Informed Care Program.
I am Dr. Miguelina Hedmang, Director of Pediatric Behavioral Health Services at Montefiore Medical Group.
Welcome to our training on anxiety and COVID-19, otherwise known as the coronavirus. While Montefiore Medical Center and state authorities are working hard to share the medical information we need to stay physically safe, our behavioral health team and the Trauma-Informed Care Program discussing an aspect of COVID-19 that many of us are also experiencing: anxiety.
Anxiety is the mental health impact of an infectious disease outbreak. In fact, we can confidently say that there is a pandemic of anxiety happening in our society right now that we are all experiencing together. Today's webinar is tailored for adults who work in the healthcare sector, but will also contain useful coping skills for adults who work in other sectors as well. Today's webinars are going to teach you skills to help you cope and survive during this infectious disease outbreak. We're going to teach you two different types of skills that are going to help you tolerate short-term and long-term distress. Now, this presentation is not going to cure COVID-19, and it's not going to focus on all the medical information that we have all received and continue to get updated on. Instead, today's presentation is going to focus on giving you the language, concepts, and tools that you need to maintain your emotional well-being and also to get through stressful moments while staying calm.
It's like every time we turn on our computers, TV, or check our phones, there is new information, confusing information, scary information. And there have been a lot of questions and comments that we have been overhearing. This is really a big deal, government conspiracies, questions about government competency, what will happen if I'm quarantined, what will happen to my NBA tickets, I'm gonna go to Disneyland on a really cheap flight, what will happen if our schools close, why are folks making this such a big deal, am I safe, am I at risk, is my family safe? And the biggest question that we've heard is, will there be enough toilet paper? And so the logistical answers to these questions can be found on our COVID-19 intranet hub. However, there are some answers that we just don't know to these questions. But we do know that this too shall pass. Currently, for some, the feeling of passing feels more like a kidney stone, but it will pass. And as we wait for things to become more clear and stable, right now, we don't feel safe. We feel threats to our safety. This thing is a threat. And even though we know that most people will not become ill enough to die, most of us have elderly people in our lives or know someone with a compromised immune system. So even if we don't feel personally at risk, we feel worried about the threat to others and people we love. This pandemic is also disrupting our activities of daily living for some of us, schools closing, threats of a furlough, or even a quarantine. And when you feel unsafe, the brain activates to keep you safe. When stress is present, several alarms start going off in your brain, and then cortisol is released, the gas pedal of your brain, and revs up the body, and we are on high alert. When the threat passes, cortisol levels fall, and the brain pushes the brake, dampening the stress response. While anxiety can be really helpful in keeping us acutely safe, there are times where anxiety is not helpful. With COVID-19, we are not getting the break every day that we need. In truth, every day there's more information putting us on high alert. In other words, our car is running hard and it's exhausted. It's like you're driving a car day after day, week after week, month after month, and over time, that engine is going to start wearing down, and we have to figure out a way to cope.
Dina was explaining what happens to our bodies when we are under this constant stress exposure from this infectious disease outbreak. I'm going to be talking about what happens to our minds. What happens is that we really have three different states of mind. And the first state that I'm going to be talking about is what we call rational mind. This is when you're thinking or acting on something logically, without a lot of emotions present. It involves your ability to problem solve, you're able to think about consequences. So if there's any Star Trek fans out there and you're watching this webinar, you probably recognize Spock from the original series, who always tried to use logic to make his decisions. Now, on the other extreme of that is what we call emotion mind. This is when your emotions consume you and take over your brain. You're really making decisions and behaving in a way that is completely driven by emotion. And so what you want is that sweet spot in between, which we called wise mind, where you are not completely ignoring your emotions, but you're also using your logic. Some people refer to this as your gut or your intuition. So what I want to point out is that anxiety can be helpful. We are not asking you to try to get rid of your anxiety because that is not a realistic goal. Anxiety can actually help us pay attention. It can motivate us to change our behavior, but I am going to ask you to move from being full of these concerns and overwhelmed, like that graphic on the left, to try to be able to get to a mental space where you can get through the moment without making decisions that perhaps make it harder for you to be at work and to function. So in the spirit of getting through this moment while managing all of the stress that we're under, let's take some time to breathe together. I want you to watch this 30-second video, follow the instructions as it guides you through taking deep breaths that are going to bring very helpful oxygen into your body and help you relax. Remember, anxiety is your body's natural response to stress. It's a feeling of fear or apprehension about what's to come. And anxiety can feel different depending on the person. Some people have panic attacks. That's usually involving chest pain, feeling too hot or too cold, getting nauseous. Other people may have butterflies in their stomach. It really varies. You might feel out of control, like spacey, or that there's a disconnect between your mind and your body. We experience something typically called the fight, flight, or freeze response. And as I go through the next slides, I want you to ask yourself, what's your typical response when you're feeling threatened or you are under chronic stress? Do you tend to go into fight mode or do you freeze? Many people want to escape and run away. Now, while you're at work, those may not be options that you want to choose. And so we're going to take the next few minutes to go through these slides and help you identify what might be your tendency or go-to style. First, we're going to talk about the fight response. This is when your brain is again in survival mode. You might feel irritable, agitated, your jaw is tight, you might grind your teeth, you might glare at people, roll your eyes, you have anger in your voice, or you may have a burning feeling in your stomach. You just feel irritable and even angry. Your language might include metaphors like bombs or other sources of violence or language that indicates danger. The next response tendency is called flight. In this one, you might be fidgety, tense, your legs are restless. You might even feel numb in your fingers or toes. You may definitely have a desire to leave work or cancel your patients when someone sneezes or coughs. If you have a tendency to freeze, you might be walking around with a sense of dread, hoping for cancellations. You may have difficulty making decisions at work, or you may feel mentally numb, stiff, or heavy. You may feel yourself checking out and being very distracted, almost feeling like you're in a fog. Now, there is a fourth response style, There are some of us who don't believe we get anxious. We're cool as a cucumber. But in truth, everyone experiences anxiety. But for those of us that are very calm and composed under pressure, anxiety may manifest in a less obvious and slick way. Our anxiety shows up as irritability, impatience, anger. You might be short with your staff, changes in sleep or eating patterns, difficulty sleeping or concentrating, and increased use of alcohol, tobacco, caffeine, or other drugs. So now ask yourself, do you tend to freeze? Do you tend to run away? Do you tend to fight? Or are you one of the ones who tries to be cool as a cucumber? Just think how quickly things have changed. A month ago, when someone sneezed or coughed or had a fever, you might have asked, are they okay? Or what happened to them? Now, with the infectious disease outbreak that we're under, you might be looking at them like this. So, in the current environment, words like excessive anxiety or that person's being irrational, they really take on a different meaning. So now I'm going to be talking to you about two different types of coping skills that we're going to be teaching you, because there's really two different things that we are all being asked to do during this infectious disease outbreak. The first thing we all have to do is maintain our emotional well-being. That means we need to get enough sleep, eat enough healthy food to get up, have the energy to take care of ourselves and our families, and come to work as directed. The second thing we are being asked to do is to respond calmly in stressful situations, such as a patient presenting with a fever, cough, or other symptoms that may indicate they possibly have COVID-19. As a nurse, doctor, front desk staff, or behavioral health staff, you may react in these moments with a fight, freeze, or flight response. I'm going to be talking to you first about the skills that you need in order to remain calm in a highly triggering environment. Start with trying to use your senses, such as your vision. Take a look at a photo album, cute pictures on your phone. People watch. Use your hearing sense. Put a favorite song on. Play it again and again. Go to YouTube and download rain or a soothing sound. Try to listen to a sound machine. Another sense you can use is smell. Carry your favorite lotion with you. Do things that help you get through the moment and be able to stay at work. Another example is using your taste. You can try to take a drink of that coffee that you love, or make time to bring snacks that are particularly soothing for you. An example of how to use touch while you're at work could include putting cold water on your face or touching something soft. In terms of movement, you could try to take a brief walk or stretch, even just taking 10, 15, 20 seconds to do a stretch can really get you out of that fight, freeze, or flight response if you're experiencing one while you're at work. Now, every person's different. And a skill that works for me may not work for you or may not work for others. So it is important to remember that if you try one and it doesn't necessarily work right away, be flexible, try to be open-minded, and try something else. What I want to highlight on this slide is that when you may be having a moment in which you're having that fight, freeze, or flight response at work, one of the best things you can try to do is to distract yourself. You are not going to be able to solve the problem, and so your skill that you need to use to cope is just to help you get through that moment without making a decision in emotion mind. So using some of these distracting skills can help put you in that sweet spot of wise mind. So some of the distracting skills are listed in this slide. There are things such as doing activities. Think of others less fortunate than yourself. Try to create different emotions.
And so Michelina shared some wonderful acute things you can do to manage in this stressful time. However, regardless of any stressor, it doesn't matter if it's COVID or anything else, you still need to grow. You need to live. You need to put some gas in your tank. So let's talk about how you can build your stamina. So the CDC has 5 different mental health tips that you can use during the coronavirus. The first, and I think we're all a little bit guilty of this, is to reduce our consumption of the news. Consume the news at a set time and don't multitask. Watch the news, receive the news, and then leave it. Consume your news from a reliable source, local, national, international. Think of it as a meal. If you're full, stop consuming. Give yourself a break. Also, take care of your body. Now is not the time for terrible eating. Yes, some comfort food can be soothing, but do so in moderation. Now is also the time for you to drink those 8 glasses of water a day. If you typically skip your lunch, take your actual lunch break, or maybe half of it. Also, maybe consider doing some exercise. If you don't have access to the gym, the YouTube channel has so many different things that you can do at home to exercise and maybe even in the office. If you're having some difficulty with sleep, again, YouTube, search insomnia music for sleep. There are lots of different resources online so we can take care of our bodies. Tip 3, take time to unwind. The CDC is recommending social distancing to stop the spread of COVID-19, and you can learn more about that on our hub. But since we're not convening in large groups, now might be the time for you to catch up on all those hobbies, some administrative work tasks, home improvement projects, or maybe just read that book or see that movie you haven't had time for. Make time to unwind and remind yourself that strong feelings will fade. Take time to really enjoy the ways that you can connect with yourself and the group of the people that are around you. It can be upsetting to hear about the crisis and see images repeatedly. Try to do some other activities that you enjoy to maintain a normal life. Share your concerns and how you're feeling with your friends or family members. Maintain healthy relationships. Maybe even get the cell phone number to your closest coworkers and send each other supportive and positive messages. Social distancing does not have to mean social isolation. There are many ways virtually we can be connected. And finally, maintain a sense of hope and positive thinking. I like to call it an attitude of gratitude. It might be helpful to start writing down the things that you're thankful for, the things that make you feel good, the things that make you stay connected with the world and the people you care about. And so in the spirit of an attitude of gratitude and really taking care of yourself and growing, one of the things that really helps me when I'm stressed out is really thinking about my values. Why am I doing this work? And so on the slide here, these are some of the things that I've heard about people who work with our community. People say they love the Bronx. They want to help. They want to do work that matters. They want to connect with people. They want to make sure people get the medical care that they need. And so when you're thinking about that attitude of gratitude and you're wondering, how do I keep going to work in the ways that I need to work? Think about why this work matters to you. For me, this work matters because I want to be a part of a space where people are connected and matter to each other. I wonder what your reason is. So Miguelina and I have given you many different suggestions and invitations for ways that you can take care of yourself. And we recognize that some of them have been repeated because there are many different ways that we can take care of ourselves. Here we have a list of all of those suggestions consolidated so you can easily access them. We are still pushing uphill when it comes to COVID-19. There are many days ahead of us that are not clear, but we will get to the other side of it. It can be heavy and it can be challenging, but we will get through this. But the first thing we really need to do is understand that anxiety is a human feature, not a flaw. Be empathetic to those who got affected in and from any country. Those with the disease have done nothing wrong. No one wants to be sick, no one is trying to be sick, and no one is trying to make anyone else sick. And the way that we can do that is being empathetic. It's not the weight of the load. It's how you carry it that counts. And empathy makes that load lighter. And so we've put together some resources that we hope you find helpful. Resources that will help you regarding your in-the-moment stressors, as well as resources to help us continue to grow and not just survive, but also thrive.
Thank you for taking the time to join us today as we discussed anxiety and COVID-19.
Yes, we had some anxiety in just creating this content. We're all learning new things and new ways to connect. And so we hope that the resources we provided today will be very useful.
We'll be sending out all of the resources that we alluded to during today's training. And we just want to close by saying we know it's a very anxious time. We are all in this together. And thank you for making the time to talk with us today. And in closing, we want to remind you, please wash your hands.